channel. My name is Megan for those of you who are new here, and if you're returning for another video, thank you guys so much. As you can tell, this video is a little bit different than usual. I'm not in my same place, and I actually have my very first guest with me. So in just a second, I'm going to let him jump on and introduce himself. But as you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about real estate. So we have a Q&A type of video going on today, and I did a poll on Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat to just have people ask questions that they are curious about when it comes to real estate, buying a house, and things like that. If you haven't seen my video about how I bought a home at 23, I will link it above on one of these sides for you to review. That's kind of what inspired this video for today, is because that one got a lot of views. So I figured I would try to help you guys some more with a professional real estate agent to give you guys some answers. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to you to introduce yourself and what do you do, and then we'll get into the questions.
Okay. My name is Darrin Carter. I'm a realtor on the Fidelis group, but we're within Remax 1. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years. What kind of got me into it, I always had like a knack for real estate. I liked the building and design process of houses, and I kind of shadowed my grandfather for a while. Then I got into real estate to help him sell a couple of his homes, and then I helped a couple of friends, and I saw the value in, like, it's a really complicated process to like buy a house. There's a lot of moving pieces to it, and now I can see, having never bought a home before, seeing like a lot of the pitfalls that you can stumble over. I think I really liked fitting into that niche of like guiding someone and kind of like being someone's trusted advisor. So that's how I got into it. Then I found a group of like-minded people, and then just really excelled from there.
Yeah, finding your niche and what you like and what you're good at is super, super important in a career, because you want to be happy doing what you're doing. So thank you for that, and thank you so much for joining me.
No, of course.
First video. This is exciting.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah,
no, hopefully we can help somebody out with it.
Yes. All right, so we have 10 to 12 questions, and depending how long the video takes, we may cut it out and make it a 2-series. But these are questions, again, that people were very curious about. So if any of these questions speak to you, drop your comment below and let me know if these answers helped. And then if you guys think of anything else that could help us do our part 2. So if you have any other questions at the end of this, definitely drop those in the comments as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So the first question was, how can you do research on history of a house or land as a future homeowner?
So there are free like public resources that you use. Like if you want to do some research on property, the first most common one is probably SStat. That's like the State Department, like of Assessments and Taxation. So you go in there, you put your property address, or you can search by owner's first and last name, or street address, and then you can pull up a lot of the basic like legal descriptions about the property. Another good source, you can go on Maryland land records. You do have to set up an account with them. It's not overly intuitive on how to use it. But you can go in there and pull up deeds or easements, assigned to a property, even sometimes plats. Another good resource would be your local, like your county, whatever county you're shopping in, the GSI map. That's going to have everything from like, sometimes it has topography, plats, etc. But the easiest way is just honestly just to call someone. Call me if you have no one else to call as your real estate agent, just to, even if you're not buying at that time or if you're just shopping, we're proficient in it. We do it every day, so it's just the quickest and easiest way to get an answer.
Okay, so to kind of go off of that, if you're looking for a house, does your real estate agent give you that information up front? Is that something that you should count on your agent to give you? And I ask that because I've had an agent before that wasn't very upfront. Like, she didn't tell me a lot of things during the process, and I actually ended up leaving her because it felt like a lot of stuff was being held in that she should have just told me up front. So is that something that should be given?
So initially, obviously the first step is like when you find your home. So usually I drive people, I let them shop on their own, they find the house. I don't really get into the details of the property as far as like the plats and easements or anything like that on it until there's serious interest there. Okay. So we go on the showing, you like it, then if you want to know more about it, I will dump as much information as I can find on you and let you make an educated decision.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So definitely make sure you ask those questions. But those are good platforms. I didn't know about those, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay. Free to use too.
Awesome. Yeah, that's always good because buying a house is expensive. So, all right. Number 2 is, can you talk about the USDA First-Time Homeowners Program and Maryland's First-Time Home Buyer Program as well?
So I'll touch a little bit on the USDA because I'm more familiar with that. So USDA it's just a loan type, but it's 100% financing. So I'm not a lender, I'm not a loan officer, but I do work, in collaboration with them all the time to like get things done. So USDA is 100% financing. So for people who meet a certain threshold, whether that be like on income or credit score, however they put in these factors, and you qualify for USDA.
Okay.
It's just, you have to buy in a rural area, so like certain areas, it has to be in an eligible area is
Yeah.
the biggest kind of hiccup with that. But the good part about it is it's less cash that you have to bring to the table. You know, everything is kind of rolled up into your loan package. So they're good for people that are looking to buy their first home. USDA is a good option.
And it's a rural area, right? You can't do city?
Right, yeah. It's backed by the Department of Agriculture, so it is a government, backed loan. So with that Department of Agriculture, they want to make sure you're not moving into like New York City or DC with the USDA loan, or using it for a flip. But it's one of the 100% financing loans. And I'll touch a little bit on Maryland. So Maryland does have an incentive for first-time home buyers, and that's more so of a tax credit. So like when you do your transfer and recordation tax, you just get a little bit of a break as a first-time home buyer.
Okay.
But there's plenty of things to assist you if you're a first-time home buyer.
I have a bunch of questions to go off of the questions, but
That's cool. You can roll. Yes.
So are those things that you would typically suggest to people? So I guess in the process, I know when I went to buy a house, obviously I was looking for a house, but I went to go get approved for my loan before I even did that process to see if I qualify for these too. So that's something that will come up as well in the process of trying to get your loan, and they'll be able to tell you which ones you're eligible for. Okay.
Yeah, so and that's just real quick to touch on it. I think that is the most crucial part, is getting pre-approved first, because really to operate in your best interest, we have to know what your ability to buy something. Like, we don't want to show you things that are outside of like a comfortable range for you.
Right.
And also, but it's a two-way street. I understand sometimes it's hard to get someone to initiate that first step of contacting a lender without at first seeing a home that excites them, because you got to kind of envision yourself in it in order to take action to get it pre-approved.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act.
Absolutely. I think for me personally, just to speak to that a little bit, I am more of a planner, so I had to know where I was at. But even what I got approved for, I did not want to spend. So I was like, okay, well, here's what I can afford, but I don't want to do that. So just having that in my mind helped me set a really good budget too. And then I knew which program or which loan I'd be able to get, and that was super helpful as far as like where I was looking. So I do suggest that. Number 3 is, why do people have to pay commission to an agent to sell their home in order to buy a new one?
Well, first to clarify, you pay the commission to the broker. So like, we don't directly get paid. It goes to Remax, and then then the money's dispersed through our broker. But you do pay a listing commission, when you list a home. But you don't just pay the listing agent. Maybe you don't realize, but you're paying the listing agent, and you're also paying commission to a buyer's agent who's bringing you a qualified buyer. So in exchange for bringing you a qualified buyer and helping you through the process along with your listing agent, that's where you're paying both sides. So I think the question also was, why do you have to pay a buyer's agent? Well, in reality, we work for free on the buyer side. I mean, technically, there's a portion of your buyer agency agreement where you agree to pay a commission if the seller is not paying one. But typically, all of our listed properties, the seller is already coming in anticipating to pay. So if you're a buyer and you're looking at homes, it'd be foolish not to use an agent, because you're pretty much getting it at no cost, when you're going to look at properties. But the adverse side effect of this, when you go to sell your house, you're kind of paying it back by paying a buyer's agent, know. But so you shouldn't have to pay both. If you're selling your house, typically the buyer's agent is going to represent you for free, because the seller of the next house you're purchasing is going to be paying our brokerage. So.
Right, so when I bought a house, that was one of the things that I negotiated because of the down payment money that I did have. I think I asked for the seller to pay a larger percent of closing costs. And and that's what that is, right? It's for closing costs. Is that what you're saying, that commission kind of goes towards?
So yeah, on the seller side, when you sell your house, any proceeds that you get, the commission would be deducted from your proceeds. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so that's why I guess you have to do that, is to just be able to help on both sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sometimes, and then, commissions are negotiable in certain situations. So like, if you have it, in a situation where like you can barely make your ends meet, and if that commission just really pushes you, like where your net is negative and you have to bring money to the table, sometimes you do have to decrease your commission just to get the person into the, it's really at the best interest of the client. So whatever they have to do and whatever you have to do to kind of help them best way you can.
Okay, so this one I really liked, because this was a heck of a process when I was buying a house. So just before I ask this question, like I mentioned in my last video, you guys, when you're going to buy a house, it's not just buying the house. And part of that, a large part of that process is having to pay for an inspection. And you absolutely want to do this for any house you go into, because if you don't, you could buy a home and something be extremely wrong with it, and then you're spending stupid money, you're stuck in a house with all this stuff wrong with it, And I actually think you have to do an inspection before you buy, don't you? Or do you have the option?
No, you don't. Now, certain loan types like USDA require certain inspections, like you have to have a passing well and septic certification, right?
Yep.
But as far as the structural, mechanical, the rest of the things that can go wrong with the house, you don't need an inspection for. Strongly recommended, and I typically will really give clients pushback if they're trying to forego the inspection process.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it because I think I had to pay for two. You have to pay for the septic and water. That was one payment. And then the second one was looking for everything else. So that kind of ties with the question is, what are some of the run the heck away signs that you should look for when an inspection? So if an inspector comes back and says, hey, this is what's wrong with the house, and what's a trigger to just count your loss and go ahead and leave? What would you say?
Well, I would say at the surface level, if you're looking at it from the surface level, anything that is going to be your most costly, right? So typically what we run into that are issues are like the roof, your septic, because that's an expensive thing to replace. You know, if that thing is clogged up and you don't get your septic inspection, and you're going to run into some issues when you go to flush the toilet.
Yeah.
We have a lot of water in this area, so standing water in the yard. Standing water in the crawl space is another big one because it leads to organic growth. So if you start to see organic growth kind of grow into a crawl space or attic, and then gets tested and determines whether or not you have mold, you know, which obviously is a health and safety risk.
Right.
So those are some big things. I would also say if it's anything older than 1978, you may want to get a lead paint inspection if you have, especially if you have small kids.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But that's just on the surface level. In reality, nothing could be a run the heck away issue if you're using an agent who really knows how to use the, you know, because once you do an inspection, then you're going to submit something called a property inspection notice. And then if you have an agent who knows how to negotiate certain things, and they may be costly repairs, but may say it's a home that's been sitting on the market for a while, you may get the seller to correct a lot of these major issues and then, you know, leave you with some issues that maybe you can fix. You know, you can fix the gutters, but the roof is new.
Well, I would definitely say for me, I remember seeing a house that had like a huge hole in it because a tree fell through it, and I loved the house, but I was like, I'm not paying for this. So like you said, that. And then the black mold, that's the big one. And a lot of the houses, like he mentioned, we have a lot of water in the area. And if they're older homes and they've been sitting there for a long time, when I was looking, I think I went to probably like 6 homes, so just black mold. And I was like, gosh, and they're beautiful homes, but so not worth it. And it comes back.
If you don't get it properly remediated, it does come back. So, and then getting something, you know, a lot of people, you think you can just wipe it down with bleach that doesn't remediate the mold. Typically, you can look at repairs, you know, thousands and upwards. So that's why I'd say it's really important if you see that you have an issue, and then the thing that caused the mold isn't treated, like you said, it's going to come back. If you don't fix the leak, you'll get mold again.
Right. Yeah. So that's good to know. That's good. I mean, and all of that is just really opinion based too. If there's something that you just don't want to deal with and you don't want to handle, then that's a perfectly good cause. And then I guess to kind of talk about that, once you accept the inspection, where you put the bid in on the home and you accept the inspection, that's pretty much your home, and you're not going to really be able to go back on it that much unless there's something majorly wrong with the inspection. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's really nothing wrong with the inspection, are you able to pull out if you just change your mind for no reason and you've already put the bid in?
So yeah, once you've gotten your inspection, you have a certain time frame that's governed by the date of contract acceptance, right? So then once you submit your property inspection notice, assuming everything is on time and you submit it, the seller then, a shot clock kind of starts on the seller side. They have a 5-day period to respond to your requested repairs.
Right. Okay.
So for an example, I think we talked about the roof and crawl space. So the crawl space has mold and the roof is leaking. You put on this inspection notice that you want the seller to address these items. The seller then, you know, say they're not going to fix the roof, then you as a buyer, you do have the ability, basically in short, to walk away from it. So you're not stuck with it, but it's very important. That's why it's very important to work with a good agent, because if you miss these timelines, then you are potentially stuck with the home as is.
Good
so the date is the most important thing in the process.
Okay, and does that change per loan, or is that a typical time frame?
That changes, that's agreed upon in the contract.
Okay, got it.
So that's something that you establish with your client and with your agent in the very beginning, so you know that you have like typically a 14, 15-day window, whatever you end up negotiating with the seller.
Okay, can you just kind of speak to the benefits of working with an agent versus doing it on your own? And before we even talk about it, you guys know, I 100% of the time will say, get a freaking agent. It is so worth it. It's so worth it, I promise. But I'll let you talk on that.
Yeah, so I think in short, I mean, we could go on forever about this, but it's literally what we do. So I'm faced with making decisions on houses every day and negotiating, you know, a few times a month, depending on how many offers that you put in. So you just end up dealing with so many different scenarios. You kind of see a little bit of everything and you can guide your person, your client, your friend, sometimes your family member, whomever you're representing. And we also, we have experience like looking for red flags. It's reduced stress along the process because there's a lot of dates you have to hit. You gotta like get your written financing commitment in. You have to make those inspection dates. You gotta make sure those are met. You gotta make sure the appraisal is ordered on time. You gotta make sure the utilities are switched. If you're working a regular 9 to 5 or you have a lot of kids or a big family, you don't have time to get all these things done. And you have to have someone there to kind of guide you, walk you through the process, and make sure that not only you're getting things done on time, but you're protected while doing it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's tons of reasons. And then the biggest one, the kind of elephant in the room is, like I was mentioning earlier, it's free. So why not get represented by someone? The seller is already paying someone to represent you. Right. So why not hire me to represent you and just make sure that it gets done right and get done.
Yeah. I think one thing that I was so grateful for was just like the paperwork and the technology behind it. And I will say this too, like I mentioned in my video, agents have a system that is 100%. So like I've said before, places like Zillow, some of those houses aren't even listed anymore. They're sold, they're not active. So it's not really reliable and you can't count on it, but the agents who you're working with will be able to go into the system that they have, and I don't think you can get it if you're not with an agent, but they can go into the system and put all your filters, what you're looking for, your price range, all that good stuff in there, and they're able to show you homes that are actually active and that you can actually purchase. And so that was important for me. And then, like I said, the paperwork. So my agent really just kind of shot over everything. Here's what you need to sign. Here's when it needs to be back. Here's what I need. And just go drop it off in my office. And it was so nice not having to worry about that myself, because even just signing it was stressful enough. So I love it.
Yeah, just real quick, I don't want to take up too much time, but you're right. So what you're speaking on is the MLS. So our multiple listing service, and like you said, you have to be part of a brokerage to get that. But that is real-time information into our current housing inventory, like what's active, what's under contract, what's pending sale, what's closed. So where Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, those are Realtor.com. They're third-party sites, so they have a data lag. So they pull from our MLS. By the time it updates on their system, especially in this market, it's typically under contract. So if you're going it by yourself and you're not using an agent, a lot of the times, by the time you gain potential interest in a home and you contact an agent, it's under contract. So to get ahead of the game, you really need to get working with one ASAP and just get on the MLS drip list so you can kind of see what's on the market.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I didn't get my hopes up on homes that I couldn't buy because I knew that they were there. So I love that. All right. Next one is, when is the best time to buy? I think they mean like time of year. Does that fluctuate? Does that depend on the market, I assume?
I know there's a common misconception that like it's harder to sell your home in the winter time. In reality, that's not true anymore. I don't know if it was at one point. Okay. The market tends to pretty much, and recently has stayed pretty active even through the colder months of the year. Okay. But the best time to buy, I mean, generally is when the rates are low and when there's high inventory, because you're not in competition with other buyers on particular homes. So I think that's kind of what people wanted to know. But then also a good key point is the best time to buy is when you don't have to buy. So when you're not going through that situation where maybe it's a separation or divorce or you're relocating in a rushed way, because you don't want to make a decision under duress. And if you have to move, and you're stressed out about something and you're making this move, you may make a decision where you otherwise wouldn't. And once you move in, you'll have buyer's remorse. And so I typically just try and reiterate that to people and make sure that they understand what's going on.
So plan ahead.
Oh yeah,
long story short.
Always start planning ahead. It's never too early.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And like I said, I looked for a house for 2 years because I didn't want to do that. I did not want to get into a home that I just kind of bought because I was in a rush and wanted to get out of my lease. I just figured it out and waited until I found my home. So
and then the right house will come to you at the right time.
It does. What's meant to be finds you. All the time. All right. So this was a good one. Can the same agent help you in a different state if you're open to relocating?
Yeah, if they're licensed in that state. Okay. So it's a perfect example. My mom moved to Arizona. I'm not licensed in Arizona, nor am I going to fly 5 hours to show her houses. So in this situation, it's easier for me just to refer her to another trusted agent after I've screened them over the phone. But if you're moving from Mechanicsville to, Richmond, Virginia, or Dahlgren, Virginia, somewhere like that, I can help you from, once
I'm you're licensed in Virginia?
No, working on that. 2021 is coming. VA licensing. So
Maryland and Virginia, guys.
Yeah, so exactly. So we can help you relocate if you're, somewhere local within reasonable distance of time. Yeah. Because you also have to think about it. It's not in your best interest for me to be negotiating on things that are far away, and I don't know that current market. So you may be overpaying for something because I'm not familiar with comps right off the top of my head.
So can you, let's cut out for a second because this wasn't on the questions, but can you explain, I think I talked about this in one of my videos because I remember this in my research, but if you're going to buy a house and the house is listed at a certain price, but the neighbors around you, their houses are going for cheaper, or they were cheaper, or that market area is not as, I guess, reasonable as what they're asking for that house, can you question that? Like, can you go back and say, hey, I've done research and these houses around it sold for way less, or it was a lot cheaper, it is a lot cheaper in the area, why is it going so high? Can you question that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the buy or sell side, are you questioning like this? So you're talking about as a potential buyer, and you see that this may be the house you're interested in, the price is higher than the 2 previous sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can question it. And it's really just derived from the market, and it's really based on supply and demand like any other market. So obviously when there's low supply like there is now and high demand because of low interest rates, you'll typically see higher price points. And then maybe you see the house that sold a year ago so for $30,000 less, and you're like, you know why? Yeah. Just basic market fluctuation. So you can question it. And if it is truly overpriced, it will sit on the market for a little bit of time. And then maybe after a few months of reflection, the seller will be able to maybe drop the price or have a different consideration.
I think a lot of sellers do that because they want to get the bang for their buck, and so a lot of people try to overdo it. But even when I was looking for a home, I saw houses sitting there for like 6 months, and there was nothing wrong with them. They just were asking entirely too much, so they do catch on, I think.
Yeah, or they try and sell it on their own a lot of the times without doing the proper market research. Or, I mean, a lot of the times I run into the issue where, you know, as a professional who's done research and I bring you objective information that your house should be priced at this, right? But you raised your kids here, so you think it should be priced at this, and sometimes we have to meet in the middle, and then, you know, at the end of the day, it's your house. I can't make you sell it for less than what you want to sell it for. I can just give you the information and make the decision. I just do my part.
So what trend is the market showing for the spring of 2021?
Good question. So I just really rely on like the National Association of Realtors, like their chief economic advisor. Okay. I read his reports occasionally when they come out. So back in November, he was forecasting going into 2021 that we should actually see an increase in new home sales and an increase in existing home sales. So similar to this year's market, next year's market should be pretty much similar. But I think a key factor that a lot of people maybe aren't even thinking about at the time is the mass relocation of people. People are leaving and fleeing urban areas and suburban areas for more rural settings right now because of teleworking. So when COVID hit, a lot of people realized they can do their same job from home. Why would you pay more money to live in the city where you can pay less of a mortgage and get a bigger property 30 minutes, an hour away? So what you see in urban areas now is like this kind of like mass fleeing of people out of major cities like New York and DC and the metropolitan area, and they're coming down to areas like St. Mary's County, Charles County. So it's kind of cool. So the housing market, I see a lot of potential in it. I see people still seeing value in moving away from their workplace because you're not tethered to a city anymore.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Do you think that there are going to be an influx of foreclosures because of COVID? What do you think that's looking like?
I think it's a possibility. I think, you know, everyone is kind of uncertain about you can never really truly predict economics. Yeah. You can give a best guess scenarios. So I think with everybody kind of losing their job and falling on hard times, there are going to be potentials where there's going to be some people that are faced with a short sale situation. For those of you who don't know, just when you have to bring cash to the table to close, or a foreclosure situation where you know the bank is retaking the ownership of your property. Right.
Okay. So it sounds like there's some good potential if you're looking to buy a home in 2021.
Right. Yeah. So it's looking promising as of the last report. But like I said, with anything, it's always a guessing game. Right. But we'll just always stay optimistic. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how long do you have to live somewhere before you can sell your house? Is there a legality, I guess, time frame of how long you have to stay in the home before you can resell?
Time frames kick in if you're trying to avoid something like capital gains tax, or if you're selling something for a huge increase in profit. And then if you sell it before the first 2 years, for example, then you could potentially get implemented with a capital gains tax, depending on your net profit of sale. But there is no set time frame. No, you don't have to live in there a year. You can sell it after 3 months. You just could be faced with a situation where you haven't built enough equity in the property yet to sell it without bringing cash to the table, right? Unless you got this house for a steal, you know, unless you just got it from a family member, a steal, and you sold it a few months later and made this huge profit on it. You may have to bring cash to the table, you know, in that situation, because all your closing costs or whatever was rolled up into your loan You just haven't paid on your loan enough to kind of bring that balance down to meet the value of the current property.
So what's the difference as between a real estate agent and a loan officer? Because I think a lot of time people think that you guys do both. So can you kind of just, you know, separate them? What do they do? And then I guess at what point do you go from real estate agent to loan world?
Okay. Yeah, no, we're two totally different jobs that work very closely in sync to get you to your end goal of buying the home. So do people ask me all the time, you know, what can I get pre-approved for? Or my credit score is this, what do you think I can get pre-approved for? The true answer to that is I can't answer that at all. I'm more of like an advisor to get you through the process, and I can get you in contact with great lenders, but a loan officer or a lender or bank, maybe federal, whoever you want to use, is going to be your go-to resource to figure out what you can get pre-approved for. Where I step in is to coordinate with them and say, okay, Megan, you're pre-approved for X amount of dollars. I'm now going to show you homes within your comfortable price range. Okay. And then I coordinate with the lender to make sure you're doing your written financing application. So it's kind of we're both representing your best interest. We have different jobs, but I need their information to better serve you, and they need me to make sure that you're buying the right house, getting your inspections done, and that there's no issues with it. So two different roles.
Very different. Yeah. Can I ask, so I know that if you wanted to get a loan through your bank, you could do that. You could get a loan a couple different ways, but if, let's say I'm working with you as my agent, could I go to a different agency's loan department if I like the loan that they were giving me better? Like if it's, you work for whoever you work for, and then I wanted to go down the street to the other real estate office to get their loan. I don't know why, but can you do that, or do you have to have a loan either with your agent? Okay.
No, and in real estate, we don't have, so we have preferred lenders. We have people that we execute a lot of deals with, and we feel that are proficient, they're going to represent our clients the best. But we're not necessarily sponsored. Matter of fact, there's laws in place to kind of stop this, like, they're called Tiller-Respa laws, that kind of stop this monopoly of, like, realtors and lenders kind of coordinating together and being in sync as one company. We recommend you lenders, but it's usually more than one, so we're not showing favoritism. We can certainly give you our personal experience with that lender, but I usually give my people at least 3 options when they're shopping for lenders. But no, there's no lending institution like tied with necessarily like a broker. So if you're using me as your agent, but you're really comfortable with maybe Navy Federal as your bank or something, and you want to apply through them, I may try and put you with someone I feel like it's faster. Okay. But it's, at the end of the day, it's your choice as the buyer. It's your loan. It's your interest rate. It's your mortgage. So it's important to use who you're most comfortable with. All we can do is just give you our advice.
Yeah, so I asked that because definitely just in this entire process, don't feel forced by anything, because like I mentioned, I had an agent who kind of was just like snippy, and she was trying to force me to use her loan officer, and I'm glad I walked away because it was just, everything she was doing was wrong. And then when I got with the agent that I actually had, the difference in that process was amazing and super important, so I'm glad that I got to experience both to know the difference. So don't feel pressured in anything. Then the last one is your personal experience or advice, just any general advice that we haven't touched base on.
I would say some of the things we've touched on that are still good advice. Never too early to start saving, because you're going to have initial costs like your deposit, your inspections. So that's, you know, right there, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 right off the bat, depending on, you know, what your price point's going to be. And when you go to get pre-approved, speak to the lender in terms of what you're comfortable paying per month versus just blindly telling them to pre-approve you based on your debt-to-income ratio and your salary and tax returns. Yes. Because you may get approved for something that comes with, you know, comes with a higher mortgage payment than what you're already budgeted for in your current lifestyle. So unless you're willing to make drastic lifestyle changes or get a higher paying job, you may be paying your mortgage check to check and living uncomfortably, and that's the last thing I want anyone to do. So I make sure that, you know, before we submit an offer on something, that you really have an understanding of what your price per month is going to be. Rate shop, you know, so the first lender you speak to, you may get a good vibe off him, but just since it is a pretty big decision and you don't want to go through the refinance process later, just figure out if there's someone else who can give you a better interest rate. And I would say one of the biggest things is trust your agent. I mean, you know, if you have a good gut feeling about your agent, just trust them through the process, because like you said, we do it so often that when we advise you, like, hey, Megan, you may want to take a step back and look at this property before you keep going through with it. Or, hey, you know, these repairs maybe aren't that bad. Maybe we should get a second opinion. Just trust our advice. I of course, just like any profession, you have good and bad people out here with good and bad intentions. So if you find someone with good intentions and they've really been doing you right this whole process, just trust them, because we'll get you to the end and we'll just do it with the least amount of stress. And just be patient, not just with the process, but with the whole home buying journey. Just be patient. Like, when you find your home, you'll know it's your home. You know, it doesn't matter like bedroom, square foot, or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's when you
absolutely.
walk in and you get that good gut feeling,
Yep.
those good vibes, that's usually the right house for you.
Yep. Took me 2 years, guys. 2
So,
years.
yeah, it's something people I've been working with since I very first got licensed, and they're still actively looking for homes. So it's not for lack of trying. It's just some people are really particular about what they want. Some people,
And that's okay.
like myself, I just need 4 walls and a TV. So it's just
It's
personal
okay to be
preference.
picky though. Okay, don't not be picky because you're living there, and sometimes it could be your forever home. But and then the only last thing that I would say is just once you find a good agent and you love them and they're helping you and they're doing everything right, also refer them, help them out, because they are working hard and this is what they do for a living. So make sure you suggest them and give other people your name. And I think some agents, even my agent had it, like if I got a reference, I get like $500 off of something for the next time or whatever the case was. So a lot of times they'll try to encourage that, but obviously if you like somebody, pass them along, because that's what they do. So
yeah, and then if anyone has any type of real estate questions, like that's one of my favorite things to do. Is just, I feel like the more informed you are as a consumer, the easier it makes my job, and the better off you are at the end of it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't do it every year. It's something you do a few times in your life if you're lucky. Some people only do it one time. So you'll still need to kind of come back to get a refresher. But the more I can inform you throughout the process, the better off you'll be looking out for things the next time around if you do decide to buy a second home or sell your current one. So like I said, use me or whoever you trust as a real estate agent as a resource.
Okay, awesome. So thank you so much again for joining. I'm going to drop his contact information in the link below. And again, I'll link some of the videos that we talked about, some ideas that we talked about. Thank you for everybody who participated in these questions. And again, if you have any other questions or comments or different answers, make sure you also drop those in the comments. Do you have anything else?
No, just everybody just keep working hard, keep striving for your goal. I think I really believe that home ownership is like the core of the American dream. I think it's what everyone strives to. Some people hit that milestone later in life. Some people hit it at a very young age. But in either instance, whenever you do decide to make the journey, don't do it by yourself. Contact someone that you trust, and we'll make sure that it gets done and gets done the right way. So
Awesome.
I think that's the best advice I can give.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another video. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, make sure that you do so you do not miss any future videos. Again, there could be a second part to this if we have additional questions. So if this is a video that interested you, please make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Never forget how loved you are cared, you are appreciated. I see you, I hear you, and I love you guys. Have a great day, and I will talk to you next time.